Welcome and good evening, everybody. And welcome back to the channel. Uh, we're going to try doing this video at night so that sun ain't shining in that big window behind me and you might actually be able to see what I look like. Assuming that don't cost me one of my two viewers I've got. But tonight's topic is one I hear a lot on the prepper forums, and um, I just it's something that isn't covered enough, and that's sanitation. And people are all have no idea what to do when the power goes out, and you flush the little handle on the toilet and nothing happens. Well, that's disconcerting enough, but there's some easy solutions to it. I've lived without power for a good chunk of my life and without utilities. So we had to come up with a different way to dispose of human waste. Now, you know how to dispose of your chicken waste and your rabbit waste and your pig waste and your cow waste and your horse waste. You throw them in the compost pile, put them in the garden. Guess what? Do the same thing with human waste. Uh, Most people have a real problem with that. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why. But then it dawned on me it's probably the same reason that, you know, we don't eat each other very often either. It's just something to do with the idea of using human uh, parts to do something. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's manure, the same as any other manure. In fact, there's a wonderful book that I'm going to recommend right off the top of this. It's called The Humanure Handbook. And you can Google it, you'll find their website. And hell, if you can't afford a copy of the book, you can read it for free on the website. But it will tell you how to safely use human manure in your garden. And uh, what I've done in the past, the place I lived before this one, we had a big outhouse. We had a outhouse that was big enough to have two seats, but we only had one. And it was 8 feet long by 4 feet wide by 8 feet deep. And that was the hole in it. And we had a bench to run the full length and only one hole. And what would happen is we'd use that outhouse till it got full and on one side. And then we'd pick up the bench, turn it over. We had the whole other side that was empty. Well, we'd use that till that one was getting full. Then we'd take the bench off. And that first half of the outhouse, the side we hadn't used in a couple of years, that was the best compost you could ever find. It was black, it was rich, it did not stink, and you just dig that half of the outhouse out and you go put that in your compost pile. And if you're real fussy, the next year you use it in your garden. Otherwise, you can use it that year in the garden. But anyway, I did that for 15 years. Myself, my wife, my little daughter. And obviously, we didn't die. And my wife did, but she died of breast cancer, not from anything she got from using humanure. And the other way is what we've used up here. And we do have a flush toilet up here, but there's two of us. We're both old, and so one toilet don't always do. And so what I did was I took a 5-gallon bucket and a couple of 2x2s and measured around the height of that bucket and the width of it. And I cut some 2x2s, made a frame, and put it around it. Then I sat on it, made sure it was stout enough that it was going to hold my weight, and reinforced it where necessary. But I made sure when I was done with it that I could lift the bucket out of the top of the frame there. Now that part is really, really important. And so you just took a toilet seat and put it on the top of there, make it all nice and comfy. And get a bag of peat moss, bale of peat moss, or you can use pine shavings you use in the chicken coop. And set it there by the pot. When you use it, take a cup or 2 cups, whatever it takes to cover up what you did, and you cover it up right away. And you will not smell that in the next room. You won't smell it in the bathroom after you give it enough time to air out. But there's no terrible, awful stench from that. And it's the easiest way that I know to go about gathering poop. Now, what about urine? Well, that goes in there too. It ain't going to hurt nothing. And when that bucket gets about a little over half full, then I take it out and put it in the compost pile. And not the one I'm going to use this year, but I'll put it in the one that's going to be used the second year. And then by the time I'm ready to use that compost, that stuff will be all broke down. And again, it won't stink. You're going to turn your compost anyway. And so it gets worked in with the rest of the compost and with the chicken poop and the horse poop and the cow poop and whatever else you throw in there. And but that's a safe enough way to do it. But sanitation is something that a lot of preppers don't really think about. And they really should, because it's going to be a bad problem. So that works fine for me living out here in the woods. What do you do in town? Well, you do the same thing. Depends on where you live. If you have your own yard and you have a compost pile, just put it in there. It ain't going to bother nothing. Use it like you would any other compost. And if you don't, you're living in an apartment, well, you got another problem. So what do? Well, you put a plastic bag inside that 5-gallon bucket, and you do the same thing, just use it like you would any other. If you're going to dump it outside, well, you just put the bag in there and go in that, cover it up. Same deal, it ain't going to stink. When it comes time to clean it out, tie up your bag and put it out where the garbage goes. And, of course, sinful creature that I am, worrying about people running around stealing stuff, just pretend you're hiding it under something, and whoever's watching you, go over and steal that. And, you can have a good laugh thinking about them getting back to their place and opening a bag of poop. And, well, maybe they'll make them quit stealing something. But that's my final thoughts on that. People make a big deal out of it, but it isn't. It's just one of them little things. And you keep yourself clean, you'll be just fine. If there really was a bad situation like the power being shut off or an EMP or something, after 3 days, your little mess that you're making ain't going to really be noticeable because the only smell you're going to have in town is backed up sewers and dead bodies. And that's just the truth of it. So, with that, I'm going to say amen for now and wish you all the best and hope to see you again soon. Night all.